Hi everyone, welcome back to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast. I am Cullen McFader, joined as always by my lovely co-host Clark Coffee.
I'm
How's it
lovely.
going? Yes,
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. See, you always do multiple for me, and I feel like I'm, undercutting you by only giving you one
You know what?
descriptor. But
No, you know what? I feel fantastic. Like lovely. That's all we need. If you use lovely, then one is totally sufficient. So
sure,
I
perfect.
appreciate
Okay,
it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm absolved.
You're absolved.
But today we are going to be talking about a more recent movie than a lot of our picks. The 2020 film by David Pryor, The Empty Man.
Hey, wait. We gotta try it.
Try what?
Calling the empty man.
Who's the empty man?
If you're on a bridge and you find a bottle, you blow into it, and you think about the empty man. Oh, come on, Mandy. How old are you?
Tell him the rest.
On the first night, you hear him. And on the second night, you see him.
And on the third night?
Well, on the third night, he finds you. He finds you. You can hear him, can't you? Squirming his way into your thoughts. Like a disease. And his message is contagious. The empty man, the empty man, the empty man.
Now wait. We have to let people know this is your pick. I think this is important.
Yes, this is my pick as well. Yeah.
Because this is gonna get crazy. I feel like this is gonna be interesting because I feel like of all the films that we've discussed, who knows? I don't want to say. I don't want to preempt what may or may not be. But I feel like I have some strong opinions about this movie. I'm not going to say it's not like I've never had any strong opinions about a movie that we've done, but we'll just have to see. I think this could be interesting. I think it could be interesting.
Well, it's also, I find it neat. What's neat about this movie is that I think that the movie itself is good. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's I think it's a decent movie. But I find that the context of its release, it sort of says a lot about the film industry and about it's kind of got an unusual sort of life to it.
Yeah. Now, is that why you picked it? Now, because I'm curious.
It's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump into that. Let's jump into. It was your pick, so onus is on you just a little bit, kind of why you picked it, why did this jump out at you as something that you wanted to spend an hour, give or take, discussing this on the podcast? Because I was kind of surprised, I didn't realize, well, we're going to get into, well, I'll wait.
Okay,
so,
yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we'll talk a little bit. I can intertwine like my personal experience with the film as well, because, I think that's perhaps a good way to do it. So
that's what we do. Yeah.
I actually did not hear about this movie when it came out. I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't see any trailers for it. I was completely
neither
unaware
did
of its
anyone
existence.
else.
Exactly. No, neither did anyone else. And so had no idea that it was released. And then a friend of mine, just kind of happenstance, was complaining about the fact that he was watching a movie on, I can't remember what streaming service. It might have been Amazon or something. And he was like, oh, this movie that I'm watching on Amazon is shot in scope, but they formatted it to 16:9, but not cropping it. It actually was squished. Like it was like squeezed into a 16:9 aspect ratio. So everyone was very long and skinny.
Okay, wait, what?
And he was just, so it was like the picture, rather than being 2:35:1, was squished into 16:9.
Yeah.
So a, taller aspect ratio.
Okay.
And he was just complaining about that. Like it was literally just a offhand comment, and I sort of said, "Oh, what's the movie?" And he mentioned, "Oh, it's The Empty Man, this movie that kind of came out. I think it was probably he had seen it in 2021, so it had come out the year prior. No pun intended. David Pryor. I'm going to be making that joke a lot. But so yeah, he told me that it was this movie, and then he finished it. Or actually, I think he didn't finish it that night. I think he refused to watch it in that kind of butchered state, and then found a different version of it that was actually in its proper aspect ratio. And then I didn't see it, I think, until the summer afterwards when I was traveling, and I had a lot of plane rides because I was going around the world to get through.
Okay.
And I can't remember what flight it was on. It might have been
so like, as Nolan intended.
As Nolan intended, yeah. I actually, and I
like
didn't even watch
7-inch...
it on like an iPad or a phone. I watched it on the TV, like on the back of the seat.
So let me I just want to understand. So you watched this on like 720, like a 7-inch,
cropped into 16:9 as well. This time it wasn't squished.
Crusty,
at least. It was just zoomed
crusty,
in.
like baby drool, like encrusted screen on the back of a seat. Okay, all right,
exactly.
Okay.
So that was my first experience with this.
Okay,
and I liked it. I the friend of mine who actually.
How many free drinks did you have on the plane?
Oh, plenty. See, the trick about air travel is you always get the flight attendants gifts. Always get the cabin crew gifts because then they just keep loading you up on everything.
Wow.
Sometimes they'll even upgrade you to first class. So
what?
Always bring them some chocolate. That's my little tip.
Okay,
but it unfortunately didn't make watching a movie on a small screen any better. But so my friend that actually introduced me to the movie, though, the one that had the original issue with the streaming version, he's a huge fan of it. He really, really liked it.
Okay.
And I didn't think a ton about it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. But again, you're also not getting a great experience in that sort of viewing setting anyway. And so I hadn't seen it since. And then just recently, same friend told me about the fact that there was a screening here in Toronto at the TIFF Bell Lightbox with the director David Pryor in attendance, and he did a Q&A afterwards, and there was like a little meet and greet cocktail party thing.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, yeah, I'll go.
Why
so
not?
I actually got to see it in its proper, aspect ratio, in a really good projection, great sound, and it made me appreciate the movie a lot more.
Okay.
How could it not if you could see a soap opera on a big screen and probably think that it would look great. And it was interesting too, because so few people would have gotten to see this in theaters because of that context that I mentioned a little bit earlier, where the movie was actually shot in the end of 2016 and early 2017. And that is right around the time that 20th Century Fox and Disney were kind of brokering their deal where Disney was purchasing Fox. So I guess with all of these movies that didn't really have a distribution path, Fox just kind of put them on hold. So it was put on hold until 2020. Then COVID happens, and it was supposed to come out, I think, early 2020. And then, of course, COVID. And so then it wound up releasing theatrically in October of 2020. Fox, because it was just like they were just about to be sold to Disney, I think the deal was actually done at this point, put literally no money into the marketing budget. There was like no online marketing, there was no theatrical marketing or anything, so it kind of got completely flopped at the box office, for lack of a better term. So
no, it's the right
it.
term. That's the right term. It flopped. Yep.
So it was a huge flop at the box office. Not only that, it's actually, interestingly, it's the final film to feature the 20th Century Fox logo that was released theatrically, which is a fun little tidbit.
they really went out on
yes.
I won't say top,
an interesting note. But yeah, so the film comes out, doesn't get any fanfare at the box office, but critically it does pretty well. Like, I don't know what it's got on Rotten Tomatoes or anything, but I think it's mid-80s or something. So critically, does fine.
Okay.
And what I find actually really interesting about the movie, and the director kind of talked about this as well, was that it's a pretty, when you hear about the term like cult film in a contemporary context, it usually is something that's sort of manufactured by a studio. So like, it's like A24 kind of trying to release like an indie, but it's got a huge marketing budget and probably had a pretty big production budget too, but they kind of market themselves as like a small studio. There's kind of this, and it's not only A24 that does this, but just an example. There's kind of this thing, like this push of like, oh yeah, this is going to be a cult classic. Like, I think of like Hereditary or Midsummer or like the Ari Aster films, where they're almost marketed from the beginning as being this kind of like, oh, like you'll hear about this through word of mouth, even though they have huge marketing budgets.
I mean,
Whereas
look, this has been since the dawn of time. Yeah, I mean, this
exactly,
is not these studios or specifically. I mean, this has been a marketing strategy since forever.
Oh, certainly,
right?
Yeah. But what I find interesting is that this day and age, it's been a long time that I can think about or remember since there actually has been a kind of true cult film that has come out, where like something that again flopped in theaters and then came back in a few years afterwards just through word of mouth. And this is an example of one that actually has, like, it's probably the most recent example that I can personally think of a movie that has garnered a pretty big following. I mean, the theater was sold out, and there's a lot of talk online about this movie.
Really?
As someone who, again, hasn't looked into a ton about the movie, like, over the years, when I was going to see the movie recently, last Saturday, I actually started looking it up online, and there's, like, huge amounts of, like, big communities that really like the movie. A lot of discussion on it online, on Twitter.
To be fair, to be fair, there's a lot of discussion. I can find any movie. You could
oh, sure.
Give me any movie, and I could type it into Google. And
it's just sort of rare, I think, to find a situation like where, again, completely flopped at the box office, and yet there seems to be, especially, I don't know if you know the app Letterboxd.
Yes, I do.
But that's a pretty, like, it's a pretty popular movie on there as well.
Yep.
So it's kind of gained this appreciation and again this kind of cult following from a very, very underfunded theatrical release. So that's one of the reasons that I thought
let's dissect it. Okay, let's dissect it. Let's go into that. Okay, I appreciate that background, because I was curious. I was curious what kind of like sparked your like your interest in this, and why you might have picked it to discuss it. Because now I will say, I think at first I was like, oh, I'm really surprised that Cullen picked this, because like more often than not, I feel like you've picked films from kind of the new Hollywood era. I mean, you're all over the place, which is awesome. You've picked a lot of different films, but I do almost feel like this is maybe most closely related to your selection. And you're gonna have to give me a hand on the name, the horror movie.
Oh, Barbarian.
This reminded me most of Barbarian, which was also your pick. And so I was kind of curious. I was like, okay, like Cullen is picking some kind of like modern, like thriller / kind of horror movies. This is interesting. I'm curious to kind of pick your brain on that. But before we go into that, I'll just briefly kind of state my personal experience with the film. It's not nearly as elaborate as yours. When you first mentioned that this was your selection, it didn't ring a bell to me at all. I was like, okay, sure, Empty Man. Okay, great. And I looked at it, and it almost made me think of like Slender Man or something. I'm like, oh, geez, what did Cullen pick? Is this like some, is this like some tween, I don't even, like Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever. I'm like, what is this? Okay.
It's funny because I thought the same thing when my friend told me, because it came out, there's a movie from 2017 called The Bye-Bye Man, which is just, I've also seen that, but that's like a horrible, disaster of a movie.
So that might speak to one thing. The name of this film might not be the best name of a film to have ever been. Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, okay, all right, what is this? And it didn't ring a bell at all. And I will have to admit that I started watching this because of some travel, like time constraints. I actually did have to watch this on a plane. I watched this on my iPad. Now, I never, ever do that. That is the first time I've ever done that for a film that we have discussed. I always take as much time or, I give it as much attention as I possibly can to the films that we watch. I watch them at home. I watch them in solitude. I am extremely focused. But I did have to watch this one on the plane. And about 30 seconds in, I was like, I've seen this before. So I didn't recollect from the name, but I have seen this before. I don't know exactly when. I don't, like you said, this was released in 2020, so I don't know how was it 2021, 2022? I can't remember. I have no idea. I'll be honest, it didn't make a great impression on me when I watched it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, all right, well, watch this again. And I went through the film again, and I can't say that this film really spoke to me
Mm-hmm.
in any, significant way. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot about this film that I liked, but we can kind of go into more detail about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I almost, and it's interesting because, obviously when we do this podcast, it kind of forces me to articulate, right? It's like, well, I didn't, like it. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. What does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so I'm kind of still, as we work through this conversation on this film, I'll kind of try to find my way through articulating some of the reasons why this film didn't speak to me very much. But I have to say, I wasn't terribly impressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I want to let's work through it. Let's work through this film. I'll be interested to kind of discuss it with you nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so my second viewing was on an airplane. Unfortunately, it was the best I could do. Not a whole lot doing for me.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned, like, again, that name thing is funny to me because, like, it does sound very much like, now it's based off of a graphic novel of the same name, so I don't think that it was a choice of the film. I guess they could have changed it, but maybe there was some sort of rights thing about having to keep the name involved. But I do also want to discuss too. I want to talk a little bit about David Pryor.
Okay.
As a person, because I think that he's also he's got a kind of an interesting career. So a lot of people likely have seen his work without realizing it, because he actually he back in 1997, I suppose it was, for Alien Resurrection, sort of in a way invented now of course there's like give or take on the specifics of it, but he sort of was one of the first people to ever be hired on a movie specifically to design the special features while the film was actually being made. So he shot like documentary and behind the scenes stuff to make the featurettes that would then go on the DVD, and designed that whole kind of
So I'm curious about this. Okay, I'm curious about this because obviously, like, people have been doing BTS forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like there's been like entire movies made, right? Whether it's like Apocalypse Now,
Hearts of Darkness,
Hearts of Darkness, or whether it's like Herzog and what My Best Fiend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's basically BTS, right? In a sense. I mean, so I'm curious about like the semantic particulars of this designation of like he was the first.
Well, it's
because
more,
I feel like people
more
have
of
been
like a physical media thing, right? Like
oh,
it's
that
more
might
of like
be
like if you enjoy the when you get a Blu-ray or a DVD.
Sure. I love that. Yeah, I love it.
Features.
I love it.
There's the list of all the things, like
right.
than it just being simply a documentary about the making of a movie. Which again, as you said, those have been for ages. Yeah. He was kind of the first person to like be hired specifically to design a kind of
as like an all-inclusive producer, perhaps. Is that what you're saying? He's like one of the
and
first...
it's specifically for a DVD release too. So whether that's the long term, like most DVDs have a long form, or Blu-rays have a long form, making of documentary, but even those like 10-minute little featurettes that are just kind of about very specific things,
and mostly for Fincher, right? It's my understanding that he's been doing this
for Fincher.
Right.
So he did. Of course, Fincher did Alien 3, but he, I think, started his first one was on Alien Resurrection, which was not Fincher, but the Alien movie after Fincher's. And then he did Zodiac, which is a movie that I've actually been considering doing on this podcast for a very long time. Maybe I'll do it soon. He did Social Network. He did The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He did a whole bunch of stuff for Fincher.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting to me that as someone who's so known but not really known, because you don't usually really remember the name of the people that make those featurettes.
Sure.
But again, I'm sure that a lot more people have probably seen those things than realize it.
Right.
And then he made in I believe it was 2015. he made a short film called AM 1200. Sorry, it's actually way earlier than I thought. 2008. He
Okay.
made a movie called AM 1200.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a cosmic horror short. It's a long form short. I think it's about 40 minutes.
Okay.
But I've seen that, and it's actually quite good. It's available online for free if
interesting.
anyone's
okay.
curious to watch it.
We'll put
actually,
a link. We'll put
yeah.
a link into it. Yeah.
Yep, I'll put it in the description.
Sure.
And I actually really do like that one, and I think that kind of goes along with one of my complaints, and perhaps I shouldn't say complaint, but one of my issues with the movie that perhaps you'll share my opinion on is that there's a lot of very strong ideas, I think, or concepts that I think the film
Reel it in,
doesn't
buddy.
do justice to.
Oh.
So, for example,
okay.
the
wait, can I chime in before you go into
go
details?
ahead. Yep.
Okay. And again, this is you and I think we probably have similar kind of thinking styles. I think we've talked about that, especially in our last episode where we talked about writing and kind of being intuitive, kind of feeling people. Which is why, for better or worse, where it might frustrate some listeners, but it also may be to the joy of other listeners if they are kind of similar personalities, that it takes some time to kind of find a succinct articulation to our thoughts about a film, or at least I'll speak for myself. It sometimes takes me a bit, but what you're making me think of is that what my kind of like little intuitive kind of knee-jerk reaction, this kind of spark that started to like grow inside my mind as I watched this, was that I felt like this was a director who had some themes that they were like very much wanted to explore in a story, but I almost felt like the themes got in the way of the film.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I almost thought like, okay, especially as we get like more, deeper and deeper into the film, and more of these themes kind of, come to explicit. They're basically just, there's a lot of exposition that starts to happen, and there's a lot of characters like saying very specific, exposition-y thematic stuff. And I'm like, okay, wow, sounds like this director had a lot of things on their mind that they wanted to talk about, or writer, or both. It sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was also written by David Pryor. So the writer and the director are the one and the same, and that makes sense. So yeah, I get a sense that like, ooh, I've got all these like interesting thematic kind of things that I want to explore. I don't know if it worked.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to me too, because cosmic horror is one of those things that I think is really, really difficult to do well.
Okay, is that what you would call this film? Would you call this like a cosmic horror?
Yeah, it's kind of like Lovecraftian, I would say.
Okay, interesting.
And like I think like a great example of it is something like, in terms of a long form sort of story, I think it can be even more difficult to do, because a short film, you can be weird, you can be vague, and it's fine. I think that's actually one of the reasons that the opening 20 minutes of this movie works really well. I think that, if anything, that's my favorite part of the movie, because it's basically a self-contained short film that the studio,
let's break this down. So when you say the first 20 minutes, you're talking about what effectively becomes the teaser, because it's like the pre-credit sequence that takes place.
Takes place
in an earlier.
Prior,
okay, and do you think that's the strongest part of the film? Is that?
I think it's the most engaging, because it's very contained, and it feels sort of like a short film. Like I could see that coming out and releasing online as a short, and it's ironic because the studio actually wanted to cut that out.
I don't mean to be like I really hesitate. So my gut instinct is to say something that I can't.
No, go ahead. Say
it. No. You know what? I'm gonna find a different way to say this, because this is a recent film, and I don't know this director, and I always have a tremendous amount of respect for people who write their own screenplays. They get their films made. I know how hard it is to find budgets. I know how hard it is to make a film. I do not want to be catty or sensationalistic with my response. I really don't. It's just not right, and it's not what we do here. I was challenged by, I was challenged by the entire film, and I don't feel like in a good way for me personally. Including with this teaser, that this and for those of you who haven't seen it, or maybe you haven't seen it in a while, we kind of open up on this, like, are they American kind of young adults, or something?
Yeah, like
right?
hikers, yeah.
And it's like very clear they're like kind of backpacking, and they're like it's
Bhutan, yeah.
Yeah, and so we've got the little Tibetan, like stream. Jeez, I'm so
the flags,
bad.
those
The flags, but I feel like right away the sense that I get is like we've got these very like not meandering, these very like heavy, important, like slow, push-ins on random objects that I don't know their importance, right? And it's like, and insert shots that seem important, but I'm like, I don't know why. What is this saying? Like, why? Like the push-in on the bell that they're spinning, right? There's like this huge shot. There's like how many, 4 or 5 kids, they're like early 20s or something, and they're hiking, and it's snowing, and they're up in the mountains, and they're spinning these like good luck. But I'm so sorry that I don't know what those are exactly. But they're these like bells, right? Or and they spin.
Yeah,
them
they're like
as they walk on a path.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I don't know exactly what those are. But this is just an example. My point is not what those are or not, but and it's like this like long, slow shot. It's methodical. It's like ponderous, and it's like we're pushing in, and each character walks by and they spin one of the bells, and we're pushing in, and there's 3 bells, and we finally like kind of push in far enough that we're on only one of them, and then it like turns, and then it lands on something, and I have no idea what it lands on. It's some symbol that I can't understand, and the film is clearly telling me like, this is super important, pay attention. I can't not pay attention because I've been pushing in on this thing for like 5 minutes, and then it's like, why? What is it? I don't know. It doesn't. I felt like there was a lot of this in this film. Now, help me understand.
Do you think that those opening 3 shots are alluding to Raiders of the Lost Ark, by the way? Because it's the exact same framing.
No, I don't. I don't think that they're alluding to squat.
No, I don't mean the bells. I mean that there's the opening shot of the mountain.
Nope.
Flanked by trees, and it is the exact same framing as Indiana Jones coming in, and then it goes
I didn't get that at all. No,
because it's the exact same. The framing is identical. Like it's
here's what that shows you. That shows you that movies are about a hell of a lot more than framing. Because
of course, I just mean that because the next shot. So it's the first shot is the mountains with the trees flanking. Character walks in the exact same way, and then it is a dolly sideways with trees in the foreground as they walk through a kind of slope in a forest. I think it's intentional. I didn't.
I'm not saying that it's not intentional. Here's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
The first 20 minutes of Raiders of the Lost Ark is an infinitely better.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, I don't mean that. I just more as an aside.
And it may be, but this is what I'm saying. Okay, let's say that's the case. Let's say that what you just said is the case. Then that even, I feel like, proves my point even more. This is somebody who's like operating from the shoulders up, and I don't feel anything anywhere because that it's like, I mean, if that's what they're doing, if that's what Pryor's doing, I don't know if it is. I trust you. You say yes, you've watched it, and you see that this is like a shot for shot kind of thing. Okay. All good and well, but for what? To what end? Why?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Why? It's like an academic exercise. To what end? And it's like, I feel like so many shots in this film are that. To what end? I kept asking myself, to what end? To what end? Why? Why the methodical inserts? Why this methodical, like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, is what I kept thinking in my head. And if that's what I keep asking myself as an audience, director, what are you trying to show me? Well, we have a problem.
I think that's also, again, I think that goes back to cosmic horror in general, whereas, again, it's like there are very, very few cosmic horror pieces of media, not even just films, that I actually think are done well, because it is such a challenging, because it's basically the whole point of like the whole thing with cosmic horror is that something is so beyond explanation and so beyond fear that it's terrifying.
No,
and that can be a very difficult thing to pull off. And I think that's why something
but I don't know. I'm going to push you on that a little bit, or let's talk about it. I mean, I don't know that any one genre is any like more challenging or difficult than the other in the parameter that you in the way that you just kind of tried to explain it away. I mean, because it's like, well, every film kind of has its own world and its own logic, right? And all I'm not saying that this film has to have some kind of play by the rules of the real world. I'm not saying that it has to be literal. I'm not saying that it has to have some kind of A to B to C to D. No, I'm not. Not only am I not saying that, I generally don't like films that are like that. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this film feels like to me. And I almost wish that you wouldn't have told me that he had been kind of side by side working in the shadows of Fincher for so long, because what I kind of feel like is that he kind of wants to be Fincher. And it's like, I've got these like really serious, methodical shots. And they just don't say anything.
What I mean though is that it's not necessarily that like I think that genre, like cosmic horror as a genre, I don't even know if genre is the right word for it, because it's more specific than that. Like there are very, very specific rules and tropes that you have to kind of go, because it was a genre invented by one guy, right? So you when you look at it, it's a difficult. I think what makes it so difficult is it can be like, again, I agree with the whole idea about, like that it when you push in on the bell, I don't understand it. I don't know what it's.
Why do I have to see like a whiskey glass?
But I mean,
like
that
12
also
times.
at the same time is that's kind of the point of cosmic horror, is that you are that it that's why it's so hard to do, is that it well, I mean it's presenting things that you can't comprehend is what makes it is what's supposed to make it scary, and that's the kind of the oeuvre of cosmic horror, right?
I don't buy that. I just don't buy it.
I mean that's like, there's so much cosmic horror stuff that I've seen that does the same thing, where.
But wait.
Whether for again,
all horrors like this, right? Like, dude, we don't even have.
Well, but I mean, again, but cosmic horror is just very specific. Like,
I understand, but I'm just gonna. This is a healthy, fun, right? I'm not. We're just look, like Chucky. Okay, Chucky's not cosmic horror, but Chucky is a freaking doll that comes to life. Now, no, hold on. I see your mouth. I see your. Okay, but it doesn't make any sense. It makes no freaking sense. Chucky makes no freaking sense. There's no horror movie that makes sense. Halloween makes no sense. Like Friday the 13th makes no. Like, I think none of these films make sense.
The difference is that you're talking about making sense in the context of the real world, whereas
I'm not.
In cosmic horror, it's not supposed to make sense it's not supposed to be comprehensible. Like,
that's where you're not understanding.
Chucky is a doll that comes to life because that's what the movie's about, right? Cosmic horror is different in that it's supposed to be cosmic, for lack of a better.
Here's what I'm talking about. Let me. It's my fault.
Yeah.
It's my fault. It's my fault. I am admittedly not doing a great job explaining myself. Here, I'll try again. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the fun of this podcast. What I mean to say is this. Again, I want to reiterate. I don't ever have expectations on a film that it has to play by any rules of reality. I really don't. As a matter of fact, my favorite films, the films that mean the most to me in my life, are almost always films that revel in a dreamlike logic in their storytelling. Okay, so I just want to say that I really do not have any expectation for a film to be quote unquote realistic or have to explain every little thing and like, oh, I see why that happened because XYZ. Matter of fact, I think it's the pitfall that most films, and especially most horror and supernatural films, fall into, where they do try to explain those things in kind of like a rational, real-world way, right? I actually think those films shouldn't try to do that. What I'm saying is this. This film takes the grammar of cinema and poops on it.
So I think the difference is, I'm going to go back to Chucky real quick. Just as an example.
Okay.
So you say like dreamlike logic, right? Like that it
Yeah.
totally agree that I don't expect a film to have like a real world grounded logic that makes, but the difference again is that in the context of the film Chucky, the dreamlike logic as it is makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chucky is it's a cursed doll
possessed, yeah.
And he is cursed, and so you see A to B to C. The logic makes sense that
right.
there's a killer, he possesses a doll because he's cursed, and then there you go, you get a possessed doll.
Mm-hmm.
The cosmic horror genre works beyond even a dreamlike logic where the logic is supposed to be incomprehensible. There is not supposed to be a comprehensible logic, right? So that's why I think it can be a very frustrating genre, and it can be it's something, as I said earlier, that I think works really well in short films, because in short films you can kind of cheat that a lot easier. You can kind of be like, I'm just going to present a bunch of ideas, and
I feel like this film, to me, I don't feel like this film did a very good job then of kind of.
I agree. I think
of giving the viewer that kind of feeling. I guess I just felt frustrated, but not because not because I didn't I don't understand what is literally happening. I rarely care. That's what I keep trying.
Yeah.
I actually rarely care.
In a sense that, like, I find a lot of an example of, I think, good cosmic horror is the film True Detective, with that first season.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Because what it does is it puts that into kind of like the cinematic language a lot, very, very effectively. And the reason for that is because it basically tells a story with a consistent logic that then uses the elements of cosmic horror as thematic elements that play on our characters going insane hunting down this sadistic child killer, and it plays on that and it adds to it rather than depending on it. Whereas what I find where I find this film falters for me is that you have the movie depending on this cosmic logic.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that.
What I mean by that is, like, you have characters perhaps doing things that necessarily don't really make sense, and I don't mean like that they're insane and they're doing that.
Yeah.
I just more mean like in the actual logic of like you're sort of.
Here's what I mean.
Like,
let me give you an example. Let me give you a specific example. Let me give you some specifics.
Sure,
These are super specific things that take me away. I don't care what genre. Here's some examples. We have repeatedly, I didn't count, but I think at least half a dozen to a dozen times we have characters talking under their breath after a scene is done, explaining to me, the audience, kind of what's happened or what the state of the mind of the character is, which tells me either the director or the writer, which in this case is the same person, didn't trust that they were able to communicate to the audience their intention, or they didn't trust that the audience would be able to understand it. So we have all these like instances where there's like the scene is done, and then we have a character talking, usually the lead, saying like one last little thing under their breath that kind of makes extra sure that we as an audience kind of understands what they're thinking. Okay, I don't like that. That tells me you don't trust yourself or you don't trust your audience. The other thing that the specific that stands out to me is, again, I don't see motivation for so much of what's going on. Again, not with the story. I'm talking about cinematic tools. I'm talking about the grammar of cinema. I'm talking about just how you're literally shooting, like editing, how you shot it, how you're like the juxtaposition of images, like the absolute bare,
the very
bones,
basic.
Like what? Like, again, I mean, I used that example of that shot, that just was like a minute and a half of this like slow push in on this bell, or like why do we cut away to this like whiskey glass being filled like for the fifth time, and it's not any part of anything. It's just like, I almost felt like the editor was like, well, we have to like put this like,
I believe David Pryor also edited it too.
like we have to just, it's like I have like this like medium one shot and this medium one shot, and they're talking, and I gotta like find a way to get this together, and I only have so much coverage, so I let me just take a quick like get some like extra cover, have like a have like some post days and like shoot some inserts so I can like edit this together. It's like there's so many shots where it's just like this is not doing any, this adds nothing. I guess that's the best way that I can say it, is that time after time after time, it's like this is adding nothing. I learn nothing about nothing. And I don't mean that literally. Again, I want to really reiterate, it's not that I'm focused on the plot and I think that every single thing has to like take me down the plot road. That's not what I mean. But every shot does have to do something. It has to tell me about the character. It has to tell me, it has to bring me into a tone. It has to like have some poetry. It has to like it has to sing. It's funny, actually. I was watching this film in the airplane, like I said, and the guy next to me, right across the aisle, was watching Pulp Fiction. He started Pulp Fiction like right as I started this film, and I couldn't help myself. I kept kind of like looking over at his screen a little bit as I was watching this film. And there's like insert shots in Pulp Fiction. There's like the needle. Like I'm watching it, and it's like Mia Wallace. It's like, here's an example. There's like in the film that we just talking about here, The Empty Man, there's like this long tracking shot of this woman's feet, like she's walking up some stairs, or she's walking in, she's like in her house. There's no reason for it. There's no reason why we should be watching her feet through like these banister rails. There's no reason. It does nothing.
Well,
there's
it's
no
story. It's definitely very like it's
there's nothing.
Making an attempt at being atmospheric,
but it does nothing.
Sometimes it doesn't.
No,
quite,
all the time it doesn't. It tells me nothing about the character. But then I look over, and there's a close up on Mia Wallace's bare feet walking, and the difference is that her walk is full of her character. It tells me so much about that character, and the place that she's in, and what mood she's in, and what's happening, and I'm like that. And it was just totally coincidental. It's like totally serendipitous that that this is kind of happening. But I'm like, that's what I'm taught. Like it kind of solidified for me. Like, this is what I'm finding lacking for me in this film, is that there's so much shooting and not a whole lot of storytelling.
Well, one thing I do think that the film does effectively in a basic sense is it does set up some good like scares moment. Like, I think that the part when he's out in the forest and he sees those people and they kind of have that little walk where he takes a step back, which has been established a few times, where it's like you step back and it steps forward and then you run away, which is one of the reasons, as it is technically a horror movie, one of the reasons that we are recording late at night tonight. If you don't know, normally we record
this is like a first, dude.
Morning
this
or
is a
early
first
afternoon, and but we're up here at the spooky hour, which might be actually a good time to bring up our sponsor today, which is Magic Mind.
Yes.
Which is it's kind of like an energy shot in a way, and you've tried it.
I've been trying it.
Like kind of what you've been actually trying it for quite a bit now. So how has it kind of been for you? I mean, want to talk a little bit about that.
I would totally. So, I think we talked last time about this, and so I've had an opportunity to have, to enjoy some more of this over the past few days. And I think we talked last time about, kind of hitting this like sweet spot of caffeine, right? And for me now, so it's interesting that this is in the evening, because normally I would never, ever, ever have caffeine this late at night, right? I've been on a plane, dude, all day. It's been like a very, very challenging week personally. My wife and we just flew in from Oregon. We landed this evening, and we needed to get this done. And like many people, it's like, hey, just because the sun sets, your day doesn't necessarily stop. But I would never have like, a strong cup of coffee, or even, more like an energy drink, like a Monster, or, Red Bull or whatever, Rockstar or something this late, because I would like never be able to get to sleep. But that's one of the things that I really continue to enjoy about Magic Mind. And you're right, they are shots. So that's the other thing that I like about them. They're about like 2 ounces. They come in like little individual shots that are about 2 ounces. And so you're not stuck drinking this like 16 ounce, kind of chemically tasting kind of thing, But it's like the perfect amount of caffeine. It's right at about 50-55 milligrams of caffeine, which for me, I feel like is right at the sweet spot for caffeine. It's not so much that it's going to make me, twitchy, anxious, but it's also not so little that I don't notice, right?
It'll wake you up, but it's not like you're
it's not
unable
crazy
to go to bed or something, right?
Hey, look, there's a lot of other stuff in this too. So if you are, I think, Cullen, you talked about how you're not as sensitive to caffeine as me. So for you enjoy more caffeine. Well, hey, no problem. You can have this shot along with your regular cup of coffee if you want. And you can take advantage of a lot of the other things that are in this, because the caffeine in this actually comes from matcha tea. And one of the cool things about matcha is that it actually is kind of like a natural extended release or time release version of caffeine, which is one of the other things that I really like about it. So not only is it it's not too much caffeine, but it's also not all at once. So it's got this nice kind of, hey, I can feel that, got a little boost of energy, but it's not going to hit me all at once and then leave me hanging, crashed later on. So that's the other thing that's pretty nice about it. But there's also a bunch of other stuff that I'm kind of like, I did not have as much experience with before this. So it's kind of been interesting. Now, look, a lot of other people out there, you're way more hip, you probably like are already onto this kind of stuff, like ashwagandha, or like lion's mane mushrooms, things like this. You're probably like totally, hip to that. For me, being the old fogey I am, right? Now, Cullen, maybe you are also aware, being like the young hip dude you are. Me being the young hip dude that you are probably into this. But there are a handful of really wonderful things in this. So it's not just the matcha tea. It's not just the caffeine. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. I actually had some right before. I had a little shot right before we started recording here. Like I said, I've been on a plane, literally all day. And I was thinking to myself, there's just no way that I can like kind of generate the energy to do this, to do it justice. But a little shot of Magic Mind and my wonderful co-host. I can't like you bring you bring it out of me too. I don't want to, But
I'm paying Clark to say that.
You're not. I would say that any day of the week. But yeah, but I've been really enjoying it, and so it's something that we've personally tried, and we want to recommend it to you. And if you would like to try your own Magic Mind shots, there's a couple ways that you can do so. So starting in January, so we're not that far out, which blows my mind. It's already, wow, it's like crazy that we're already at the end of the year and we're just about to go into 2024. This blows my mind. So if you want to get into 2024 with an extra boost of energy, you can do so. You can try Magic Mind at your local Sprouts starting in January. And or you can also check out Magic Mind at magicmind.com/soldiers of cinema. So again, that's magicmind.com/soldiers of cinema. And you can use our discount code cinema20. So that's cinema 20 as in 20, cinema 20. You can go there, and you can also check out Magic Mind. You can use that Cinema 20 code to get a 20% off a one-time purchase, or up to a 50% off subscription to Magic Mind. So you can either try it at Sprouts, or you can go online and try it with our code. Either way, I think
all that
you'll be
info
impressed.
will be in the description below as well.
We'll have all that information in the description below. And I just also want to add too, because look, taste is a big thing for me. I think we talked about too. It's like I'm not a fan of coffee. I'm not a fan of coffee. But these little guys are actually quite tasty. And it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around exactly how to explain their taste, but I actually really enjoy them. And I think that you might too. So go ahead and check it out.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to cheat a little bit
Uh-oh.
on our discussion about this movie.
Okay.
Because, of course, as I said, I saw the film live with the director.
Yes.
And so I got insights that weren't available to me when I first saw it and I didn't pick up on. But I do want to bring them up, not necessarily as a explanation of the, maybe some of the flaws that we're bringing up, but rather sort of a point of discussion. Because I think it might be interesting to talk about, like, does the movie do this effectively, or
and I want to say too, just real quick, because I don't want to say I want to be real clear. It's not like I'm sitting here like, oh, this film is flawed in this way and that way and that way, and I know I get animated and I've got some magic mind in me, so I've got a little extra energy, but I just want to be really clear. It's awesome if you love the film. And I'm sure, and if I met David, I would have a million questions for him about, what his process was like and how we got this film made. And, not for 1 second would I dwell on any of these things that we're talking about here, in the sense that, like, I'm just talking about how my personal viewing experience kind of left me. But
I think we both like to kind of interrogate things anyway. Like, I think for some movies, of course, they're classics and they're favorites,
but it's very personal.
Flaws, but
but it's also very personal. It's like this is my personal experience with the film, and I like a lot of stuff that other people would be like, "That's garbage. This is total garbage. Like, how can you possibly like that?" And I don't like a lot of things that are perceived by most of the world as being amazing. So it's and this is what I think is the wonderful thing about cinema and art in general, is that, like, there's thousands upon thousands of films, man. Like, you can go like what you like and don't like what you don't like, and to me, it's all just like a refinement of your own taste. You use other films to kind of contrast, to better understand yourself and your own taste. And anyway, I don't know why I felt the need to kind of say that. I think everybody who listens to our podcast at this point probably knows that, but I just want to say, and I just want to reiterate, it is never like, oh boy, I let's pick apart the flaws of this film. That is just not how I'm approaching it. So anyway, okay, there's my disclaimer. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. But no, I just think it might be interesting too, like, on that, to put these ideas out as he stated them, and kind of see what we think about them. And there were a few things that he spoke about. One of the things was about, like, again, the studio interference. So apparently there was actually originally, so the studio cut the movie down to like an hour and a half. They cut out the opening, that opening, like, prologue.
The teaser prologue,
and it,
which frankly I didn't feel like
destroyed by test audiences. They hated
Let's
it.
pause here for a minute. Okay, let's pause here for a minute. Let's talk about the length. Let's take this like bit by bit.
Oh, yes, it's quite long.
I honestly do feel like the film would have probably... I feel like the film might have been more successful had it lacked that prologue, to be frank.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
To be frank, I don't feel like the prologue offered me anything about that film. Matter of fact, I feel like it took me away from the other, like, 9/10 of the film. I'm just going to be... Now, look, it might have been kind of more interesting. So this is one of the tough things, right? It's like, ooh, we have this, like, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of CGI-y heavy too. It's like this fake snow and this stuff. So it's like, I don't know where they shot this, but it's
South
clear,
Africa.
It's clear. Yeah. Even though they claim to be in Missouri for a lot of this too, which I'm like, I don't recognize anything.
They did shoot a lot of it in St. Louis.
I didn't see anything I recognized, but what do I know?
That bridge is in St. Louis. I think that's actually why he chose to shoot it there. That long bridge. Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to go back and look to see exactly what bridge. But look, get back to the point. I mean, so I can see why it would be hard to let that whole prologue go, because it's fancy, But what in the world does it do for me for the rest of the film? and I just don't know that it does a lot. I will say too that like if let's say like I had if this were a friend of mine and they gave me this cut that I saw, what the final cut of this film, that the released cut, they gave it to me and they were like, hey, make some notes on this. I think the number one note I would have would be like, cut out all this air.
Mm-hmm.
There's like so much air in this film to me.
Yeah, I don't mind it as much, perhaps. Like, I find that the opening, I think what works for the opening, or about the opening for me, is less so, like it may not be necessary from a standpoint of like narrative.
Uh-huh.
But for me, it kind of gets me into this mood and atmosphere that I kind of like.
Okay.
Like I kind of fall into it a little bit.
Okay.
I like if I try to imagine opening on just the present day stuff with
Fair.
James Badge Dale.
Fair.
I feel like I wouldn't be as sucked in a way, almost not hypnotized.
But does it?
That's not quite the right word, but perhaps again it might not have worked in that way for you at all.
That's fair, but what does that say then about then what does that say about the rest of the film?
No, exactly. And so that's actually what I find interesting too, is that like I don't know, it's weird because it almost also, there's parts of this movie that I actually completely like I couldn't remember.
Boring. Can
much.
I just say that? It's boring.
Sure.
It's boring.
I couldn't remember anything after the camp scene the first time I'd seen it. And so I actually felt
which
like I was
is the
watching
camp
a new
scene?
movie.
Which camp scene?
So when he goes to the like the big, there's like the cult running around the fire at night and he gets chased away. I couldn't remember anything after that.
See, that's another one of the scenes where he does that talking under his breath thing, like I'm not gonna get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally one of the scenes where we have the character like saying something under his breath, and it's like parentheses in the script, like it's so much of that. I'm just it's my personal pet peeve where it's just like, I don't know if they're going to get it. I mean, we've got the words and I've got these images and I've got this music, I've got the score, but I don't know if the audience is going to get it. Maybe I should just talk directly to them real quick right here.
Now, I am curious. He didn't speak specifically about this, but he was a director for hire for this. Like even though he wrote the script, I don't know how much control he had in terms of like the final screenplay.
Now wait. Did he write the? Okay, so do you know about this? Was he hired to write the script and shoot it, or did he rewrite a script? Like, what's the story there with the script?
Well, so there's two writers. I think he was hired to adapt the film because he
was hired to adapt the graphic novel.
The graphic novel. And
okay.
So what's actually interesting about that too is that the graphic novel is not related narratively to this at all, other than the fact that they kind of take place in the same world. So the graphic novel is set in like it's the same sort of situation where there's this like again cosmic horror cult blah blah blah, but it's just sort of set in the same world. The story that this film portrays. The way he described it, he said that the graphic novel is very impersonal. Like there's not really, like the main character that we see here doesn't exist and things like that. And that he wanted sort of a more personal approach to it. Now again, what I find interesting too, though, is like I don't know how much power he had over like exactly how the script went. I know that he said that he wanted to change a lot from the graphic novel with their permission, the original author's permission, just on the basis that you have to adapt things. But yeah, so the original studio cut of the film was an hour and a half.
I'd be interested to see that.
And then he released a longer version. I mean, the final cut is I think just under 2.5 hours. And the studio actually accused him of stacking the audience of the test screening because it did a lot better, which is kind of funny. So then I guess that kind of won him over his kind of not. I don't know if he got total final cut, but he definitely got
interesting
more, say onto how the film would end up. And so I find that kind of neat, just because it's also. I mean, one of the things that I actually didn't pick up on, but that he talks about is thematically that it is in a way a sort of like meta commentary on storytelling and filmmaking in that.
Tell me more about that.
So a lot of horror going back very long, but especially these days deals
Going
with
back
trauma.
to the dawn of time.
Yes, exactly. It deals with it's like horror as a response to trauma. That like that the fear that this character is having is a metaphor for the trauma that they've gone through. We all know the horror movies that's like keeps cutting back to flashbacks of like a family member dying or a car accident or something like that. And this movie does that.
Well, that even happens a lot in like dramatic films, right? Or even melodramatic films. I mean, this
and I
is
think it's a way that
trope.
a lot of horror movies try to kind of like elevate themselves in a way. For better or for worse. Sometimes it works.
Sure.
And so this movie does that. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, really? Like, we're going to do this again?
Yeah.
But what I actually do...
Well, wait. Again, because you've got so many ideas, I want to like slow you down. I hate to interrupt, but I want to delve into a few things. So at what point did that happen, what you just said? You're watching it and you were like, oh, are we going to go here again? Like, do you remember?
So when it starts, I can't remember how early on in the movie it cuts back to. I think it's actually when we are introduced to the character that it has this
the
flashback
character
to his
that,
wife and it's
that
like the
James
slow motion shots
Badge-Dale
in the
plays?
car. Yeah.
Okay.
So the main character,
Yep.
and it keeps cutting back to like these slow motion dreamlike shots of his wife and his son in a car.
Yeah.
And as the movie progresses, you get more and more context, and it turns out that it was a car accident and that they almost hit a deer, blah, 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 and they're dead. And so I remember that kind of turned me off a little bit because I was like, all right, a lot of movies do this. It just kind of felt a little bit tropey and a little bit unoriginal. And so, again, what I find interesting, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this move, but I do find it interesting that what David Pryor said in the Q&A afterwards was that the goal with that was that because at the end we reveal that never happened, that his wife and child didn't exist, that they were fabrications, that this guy is a complete fabrication. He is as they say, like mind and spirit put
He's
together
made up.
as flesh.
He's made up.
And so he was sort of saying that it was like a little bit of a meta commentary on tropes and on trauma as a horror kind of element.
Yeah.
That literally this character in his own universe is like a character of a movie.
So here's the thing.
Have written his screenplay.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like when you tell me that it sounds great. That sounds awesome. And this is, I think, is one of the general challenges with stuffing themes into stories. And look, I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of my personal number one challenges as a writer and as a filmmaker. And I am like struggling to kind of process, like work through this myself, which is I have an orientation to story, which is that I think as an audience, like me watching a film, I feel themes like really intensely. I mean, it does, whether they were intentional by the filmmaker or what or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, just like my interpretation of what's happening, that's kind of like my orientation as an audience to story, is that I feel themes kind of almost more than anything, right? So then when I go to create a story, I kind of have this like thought that that's the way that I should work into it. Okay, thematically, because that's what stands out to me so much, right? That's what sticks with me. That's what speaks to me and sticks with me from the movies that I see and the scripts that I read and the novels that I read. It's the themes as I kind of understand and interpret them. Again, it's the author or the filmmaker may or may not have had been thinking that at all. Okay. But I think the challenge here is like, okay, you've got this like really interesting meta thematic kind of thing, right? Where, but what does that do? Like, how do you do anything with that in a script? How do you do anything with that in a story? And I think that's where maybe potentially not having known, David Pryor or, that obviously this is speculation, as one of my favorite filmmakers likes to say, this is cinema speculation. But my imagination tells me that maybe this is kind of where some challenges for David Pryor in the same way that it's a challenge for me, which is from the shoulders up, I have all these wonderful ideas about themes that I'd like to explore in a story. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of writing and executing a story, you know, theme first usually doesn't work.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
It's writing a story or writing a script around a theme doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I've done it, and I've made short, like I made a short film back in 2018 called The Sun's Gone Dim. That was exactly it. It was written, and I think the movie's fine, but I also every time I watch it now, I'm like, oh,
you cringe.
I
cringe.
specifically wrote this because the theme requires it. I do agree. And I think that was one of the things that
I have sympathy.
Also notice about just sort of one of the things that I mentioned briefly earlier was that you have a lot of situations where the actions a character takes or things that the way characters speak, the information that they give is in service to the theme rather than the theme coming out of
organically
those actions,
subconsciously, and even more, to kind of tie in, because again, like, yes, we love films, but we're also filmmakers, and I'm also somebody who's like, working on becoming a better writer and a better filmmaker, and so are you, and so we're going through these, processes or this growth ourselves, hopefully, and it's a big part of why we do this podcast. And so, for me, it's like, I mean, again, this is speculation, but it's like I have great empathy, to filmmakers who are also challenged with kind of finding their way through this, because it is extremely difficult and it's extremely delicate. And you've got these great ideas, and as you were describing, kind of this meta thematic idea for this character in a horror film, that's extremely interesting to me. I mean, there's a part of my brain that lights up, and I'm like, I want to see that. Like, I wish that I would have seen that in this film. And I guess there were like little hints to that where I was kind of like, okay, I really see where the filmmaker is trying. They're like, there's ideas. I see lots of ideas, but it's so difficult. I mean, I feel like you just have to trust as a film. I don't know another way to do it. I don't know another way to do this. You have to, like, all these thoughts that you have in your body and mind and heart, whatever you call it, all these thematic ideas, you almost have to just trust that all of that is going to somehow come out it's just kind of like going to bleed into the margins. It's going to bleed in between the lines. It's going to bleed in between the words and the letters that you put on a piece of paper. And then when you're off shooting it, it's going to mix with all the other stuff.
Yeah,
it's going to ooze out of
it. You kind of have to.
It has to be.
Which I think that I've definitely gotten better at, where it's like you have a theme in mind, but you more so let it.
You have to let it go.
Seep into. Yes. The writing naturally rather than trying to write around it.
Dare I say it, subconsciously.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I some of the best films, and we've done some of them here, and a lot of them we haven't. But some of my favorite films, it's like, they're so profoundly simple. You could almost say that the filmmaker had not a thought in their head when they were making it, but somehow yet you watch it. And you're like just filled with ideas and feelings, and
you can take so much away from it. Yeah,
I mean, it's like Rumblefish. We did this one a while back. I'll pick that one because it's kind of one of my favorites. And again, it doesn't speak to everybody else. It speaks to very few people, but hell, it speaks to me for some reason. It's like there's almost nothing happens in this darn film. Like, it's like a handful of like teens talking in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, on like a handful of evenings, and almost nothing happens in the film, and I am so profoundly moved, and every time I watch it, I'm like, somehow I dig up another nugget of thematic importance. And we've all had films like this, and I bet if I sat down with Coppola in this example and I talked to him about, like, I shared with him like all these themes that I've dug out of this film, I bet like 90% of it he would be like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, man. I wasn't thinking that at all, but
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the difficulties too, though, and that's one of the things that about the talk that David Pryor gave after the screening, which kind of made me go like, it kind of made me think about it. So another example of this is the he also discussed about the idea of like repetition and cycles and tropes, and that this movie kind of being a metaphor about like, so when he gets to that when James Badge Dale gets to that Scientology kind of proto-Scientology building, and there's that guy giving the speech.
Oh, can I speak really clear? So Stephen Root is the guy that you're talking about.
Yes,
that's the actor. Yeah. And I feel like he's the standout. You know, he's in it very briefly. I love Stephen Root. I think he's fantastic in this.
Yeah, he's great in it. Yeah.
It's very short, but he is just so
Actually,
wonderful.
the studio cut that scene out of their 1.5 hour cut too.
Oh wow. Yeah. He's great, and I just also want to say, just super briefly, about performances. You know, James Badge Dale, like we've mentioned, he plays the lead. James, I think it's I don't know, James something, I think his last name. Maybe you can recall it. Because James plays James, if I'm not mistaken. His character's name is James.
It's La Sombra, or La Sombra, because it's Spanish for the shadow.
There you go. Okay, I knew you would know that, but James stands out to me. I don't know if any of the rest of you kind of remember, but he stands out to me in a big way from The Pacific, which I thought he was really wonderful in.
Yeah.
That's from 2010. That's kind of there was like Band of Brothers, and then
there's
was
kind of a new one now, the Spielberg Tom Hanks World War II show.
They are. That's a whole other thing. And who knows? We might even talk about that to some extent on this show. Maybe we're going to get wild and crazy and do something that's actually not a film. I don't want to go any further here with that. That's under wraps for now. No, but. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you yet once again, but I just did want to call out because you had mentioned that scene. Stephen Root's fantastic.
Yeah. No, but so the conversation that he has, though, and the kind of speech that he gives about like repetition, and if you repeat something so many times, it loses its meaning and stuff like that. So David Pryor talked about how he kind of was, again, like talking about cinematic, like trying to kind of say that, oh yeah, if you repeat the same tropes over and over and over again, they lose their meaning. In like, again, it was lots of this kind of meta about, and I like
that. And
stuff.
Again, it's like I like that, and I could see intellectually, I could see those gears turning in this film. It's not that I was ignorant or blind to that. Like, I could see what he was saying. Matter of fact, even in kind of like a, you know, I don't know if this is like meta or, but as an actor, when I was studying acting, one of the biggest kind of like aha moments, not biggest, but a aha moment I had was just in the understanding more clearly for me, kind of like just the pure logistics, right? So what do you have? What's the bare necessity as an actor that you have to do? You have to memorize your lines, right? That's kind of like the bare, right? That's like the bare bones, like remember your lines, okay? And it's a funny thing, and I think a lot of actors have, what they'll do is they will try to memorize their lines by rote. So they will say them over and over and over. And what happens when you say your lines over and over and over?
Sounds like gibberish.
They lose their meaning to the one person who needs to be endowed with like huge meaning for these words. And so, anyway, this is an aside, but all those things were there. It's not like I didn't pick up what he was putting down analytically, but emotionally,
well, no, and I think that's the exact sort of thought that I had, where I think what I took away from it, and I really appreciate the, being able to hear him talk about it in person, and like being able to see him at this little event thing, was, as he said these things, I kind of went, oh, and sort of had this thought of like, I could see that vaguely. I could see the movie pushing this kind of premise. I didn't really understand that it was directly trying to comment on like filmmaking and cinema, but I could definitely see these themes because they do kind of state them pretty explicitly a few times. But I think what kind of got me was I was sort of thinking like, I'm not the mastermind of like film theory. I don't watch a movie and immediately understand everything about it, of course.
Sure,
I don't think anyone does.
Of course.
But I tend to at least be able to get things and kind of, as you said, emotionally understand things and go, okay, I can connect the words that this person is saying, with the way that this film is made, in its language and the grammar that it's using to tell this story. I can connect all those things and see a through line.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of one of the things that was missing. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I hear the director talking about it now, and so now it makes sense because I've heard him say it.
Yeah.
But there's a slight problem there which is that I had to hear the director say it to get it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that was kind of what I felt at this little talk afterwards, where I was like, oh, okay, I get that now. And maybe if I rewatch it again, it'll kind of be more effective in that way. But I also think that it's a bit of an indictment to the way the story is told, if I need that to be explained. And then again, maybe I'm just stupid, but but I think that I tend to understand those things, at least on a reasonable level, and just kind of didn't. And like you said, it kind of, there's a lot in the margins of this movie that I think distract from that main point, because it is very, like you said, sort of like filled with air. There's a lot of hang time. There's a lot of effort put into being atmospheric.
Ponderous, even.
That feels, exactly, that feels a bit superfluous and more like it's just trying really hard to establish tone.
Yep.
Versus actually using the scenes to just kind of have the tone come out naturally, in a sense that feels, again, a little bit more subconscious, like we've discussed.
But here's the thing. Like, would you say that Halloween, the original Carpenter Halloween, is that without tone?
No, not at all. But I think that, again, like I said, that it's just that movie lives in its tone, right? Like, everything works with the tone. It doesn't feel like it has to put tone around. Like, it doesn't,
which is what it should be.
With it.
Which is what it should be. Is what it should be. But but yeah, I mean, as we kind of wrap up here, were there any? I think we talked a little bit. Direction, kind of writing. We touched on performances a little bit. Was there anything else that you wanted to kind of touch on as we wrap up?
So this is David Pryor's first feature film.
Yeah.
And he did that Guillermo del Toro movie. I think it was like an anthology from 2022, I believe.
Oh, the
on
show,
Netflix, The Cabinet of Curiosities. So he directed actually my favorite one from that, which is The Autopsy.
Really?
With what's his name from Amadeus? Blank on his name.
That's okay. I haven't seen it. I would be interested, and that's streaming, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah.
Okay.
So he directed. That's his most recent directorial work. He doesn't have.
It's called The Autopsy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the Cabinet of Curiosities. Yeah.
Okay.
And so he doesn't have anything. I've checked on IMDb Pro. I've seen to see if he has like anything in production or anything like that, and there is not anything as of right now. And so I wonder if that is a result of some of the issues with the studio that he had. I wonder if that's an issue or a result of the box office performance of the film, or if he just didn't have a great experience doing it or not. I didn't get a chance to ask him why he is not planning on doing anything else as of yet.
Yeah.
But I do, honestly,
reach out. We should reach out.
That he, I hope that he does something else, because again, I think that while we've been critical of the movie, I think that we wouldn't be talking about this movie if we didn't appreciate aspects of it, right? And so, and
agreed.
I think the fact that there's nothing worse than something that is like so middling of the ground that you don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I think the fact that we have had plenty to talk about this whole time, and
speaks,
a very interesting conversation, speaks to the fact that there is a ton.
I agree with that.
To be interested in with David Pryor.
I agree.
And so I hope that he gets another chance to do a feature, because I'd be
hope
very
so
curious.
too.
I'd be curious to know if perhaps if some of the issues that I have with this movie are inherent to his style, or if these were things that came out during production. I know he talked a little bit about it being a bit of a troubled production.
I mean, look, I'd love to.
So
I'd love to get him on the podcast and pick his brain on the on kind of how he experienced the production and post production of this film. But real quick, so it's F. Murray Abraham, who was the actor that you were talking about, and of course, he's just brilliant, and he was starred in Amadeus, which we've done in a previous episode. So if you haven't listened to that, go back into our archives. It's one of my personal favorite episodes of ours, and it's also one of my personal favorite films. And that's why we picked it. But I would agree with you. I would be interested too. I mean, I think too sometimes it's just and again, this goes back to the respect that I have for anyone, and I really do mean this. This is not hyperbole. I have a tremendous amount of respect for anyone who gets a freaking feature film made today. And not only did he get one made, he wrote it. He had it. It was theatrically released. I mean, you can go watch it now. It's streaming, and it is an extremely, technically competently, well done, done film. And I don't mean this is not damning with faint praise. Just to accomplish like those things, I think for people who haven't tried to do it themselves, it's like darn near impossible, man. Like it is really freaking hard.
Oh yeah.
And so it is, so I have such a huge amount of respect, and sympathy and empathy and just about everything else you could think of for somebody who's been there and done that. So anyway, I guess that's basically just to say that I agree with you and your final sentiments, that I hope that he's out there working on another project. And I hope we get a chance to see something else from him. I'm going to go check out that episode.
And the short film, the AM 1200 short film, which is also
and I'll be
online.
curious to see. Yeah, and I'll be curious to see, like, what do I think about that versus, like, some of my thoughts on this. So, all right. Well, with that having been said, everyone, we're going to wrap up. It's getting late. This is, like, the first time we've ever recorded so late. I mean, look, I'm an old fart, so this is, like, I barely stay up this late, Thank
It's 1 a.m. here.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, well, thank goodness for Magic Mind. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode on The Empty Man. Cullen, thank you so much for the pick. I enjoyed discussing this film, and I look forward to our next discussion. Until then, everybody, take care. We'll see you on the flip side.
Bye-bye.